Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome, or good morning, depending on where you're coming in from, and welcome to Reproaction's Act and Learn webinar for May 2022. We're very excited that you're choosing to join us for today's extremely important topic, self-care for activists. So first, we will introduce your hosts. I'll introduce myself first. The first voice you're hearing is Erin Matson. I use she, her pronouns. I co-founded Reproaction, and I am executive director. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I am Erin to the max on Twitter.
And I'm Elizabeth Skoski. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the development and operations manager at Reproaction. I'm located in Westchester, New York, and on Twitter, I'm at Liz Skoski.
Awesome. So let's go through our agenda for today. We'll introduce Reproaction. We'll talk a little bit about the context of what self-care means as we face the likely fall of Roe. I know everyone who is paying attention to Reproaction and is even people who don't normally pay attention to abortion have been rocked and really upset by the leaked Supreme Court draft opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. We'll talk a bit about the impact of self-care on activists. And then we went in and dug in with our team and had every member of our team provide a favorite self-care tip that will be shared with you today. And we'll do next steps and then Q&A. And if you have any questions at any point during this webinar, just please feel free to put those in the questions tab and we'll get to as many as possible at the end. So first, a bit about Reproaction. Reproaction leads bold action to increase access to abortion and advance reproductive justice. We're extremely proud of our left flank analysis and our willingness to hold folks on all sides of the issue accountable, whether they're traditionally considered allies or opposition to abortion rights. And we have a deep commitment to nonviolent direct action as one of the tools in our toolbox. So let's talk a little bit about what self-care means as we likely face the fall of Roe. This moment has been very long coming, and the recent SCOTUS leak is the latest part of a sustained campaign to overturn abortion rights. Let's be very clear that for more than 50 years, the anti-abortion movement has been laser focused on building the power to overturn Roe versus Wade, to stack the Supreme Court, to do that, and simultaneously to pass abortion bans in the state, restricting access until they got to that goal. And you know, the fact of the matter is that we were not surprised by what was in the leaked opinion draft itself. That was a long time coming, but it's still extremely upsetting. The fight is still on, and the fight will continue long after media cycles will. And those who have been activists for reproductive health rights and justice know that this has long been a challenging fight. And we are clear-eyed that this fight is going to get a lot harder, and the scale of suffering in response to reproductive oppression is going to get much, much larger. We need everyone in this movement, and it's vital to figure out how to take care of yourself in these unprecedented times. And I just want to say a little bit more from a movement building perspective. So I'm a big fan of social movement theory. And in particular, one of the things that we know from social movement theory, and this is if anyone wants to get super wonky, there's the work of Bill Moyer is instructive on this. But basically what he does is he maps out the 8 stages of social movements. And one thing that is really common, and actually one of the biggest pitfalls for social movements, is burnout and activist burnout, and activists not realizing how much we are accomplishing in the face of just overwhelming oppression. And so it's really important. I just want to underscore that self-care is not selfish, that self-care is extremely important. And in this moment in time when the attention is rightfully focused on abortion, there is overwhelming pressure on activists that may feel like the need to do everything and be everywhere and have an answer to everything and be present online all the time and sharing content nonstop. And the fact of the matter is that's not sustainable. That is not sustainable. And the most important thing is that this is going to be a long fight, a very long fight. And the most important thing is that we are all equipped and investing in our ability to do this work over the long haul. So I just want to stress that while this moment is urgent and it's bad, it's also a long fight. And so, so please, please, please understand the importance of self-care, that it's important for you, and that is enough. You deserve it, you as a person, regardless of your activism. But it also, if that's harder, some people struggle with that, with just sticking up for themselves in itself. If that's harder, know that this is really important as we face the likely fall of Roe. This is a long haul fight, and we need all hands on deck, and we need the hands to be able to come on to deck for a long period. And so that means also investing in ourselves. So I will pass it over to Liz.
So I just wanted to speak a little bit about the impact of self-care on activists. Erin's talked a little bit about burnout, and we've definitely heard that word a ton over the last couple of years, especially as the COVID-19 pandemic has continued to stress and exacerbate already fraying systems. So the word has, it feels like it has lost a little bit of meaning and a little bit of the severity of what it is, but burnout has significant impact on a person. It's a form of exhaustion caused by constantly feeling stress. So that idea of excessive, prolonged emotional, physical, and mental stress. So it's not a tough day, it's not a tough week, it's a sustained feeling of stressors impacting you. And preventing burnout requires so many things beyond just the simple, it's a buzzword, self-care, take a shower, take a walk. Those things are great for some immediate relief, but it really does, the prevention of it requires kind of like looking inward and learning how to recognize it, revisiting and reevaluating priorities, reducing stressors whenever possible, and prioritizing self-care. And that's something that we're going to talk about today, how our staff members have really figured out how to prioritize their self-care and what works for them.
Thank you so much for that, Liz, and for really diving into what burnout actually means and how we need to combat it. So let's talk a little bit about how Reproaction is prioritizing self-care. This is a huge part of our work as an organization. We want to be sustainable, and we put this in our strategic plan, and we are working hard to affirm the importance of self-care and see it as critical to our work. So one thing that we're super pumped about that we love is that we have an invitation for all full-time staff to work a flexible 32 hours a week at full pay and benefits. And I can say, if anyone, I get contacted by other organizational leaders about this, and I'm always happy to chat about it. I think hands down, it's one of the best changes internally that we've ever made in our organization. I do believe quite strongly that we are doing better work when we do less work, and that it seems to be motivating. I feel a lot more creativity and buzz within the team, and it works. Another piece that we're excited about is reimbursing for wellness. So we have allotted funds that staff can use at their discretion for activities related to self-care, which is really cool. Some people use it to take art classes. Some people use it to get new walking shoes. Some people use it to get filters so that they can have people in their home, air filters, so that they can feel more safe in this pandemic and having the social connection that we all need. We make a point of, in our regular check-ins, to assess burnout and to just have consistent check-ins and really prioritize self-care in that model. And then we are trying very, very hard not to model the culture of burnout that overwhelmingly dominates in the nonprofit sector as well as the activist sector, and seek to actively model a culture of boundaries and personal time management and respect to obligations outside of work. And if you lead an organization, I'm happy to talk to you about that further. You can always come contact me. And if you also want to build this work within your organization, I think anyone on our team would probably love to chat about the benefits and how we've made things work and what we've learned along the way. So with that, I will pass it to Liz. Oh, Liz, you may be on mute. Let me see here.
Sorry about that. Yes, I am. I was on mute. Thank you. So just before we got started, really quick, I wanted to share a quick anecdote about how I realized how important self-care was, especially as far as work and family obligations go. It was March 2020 in the beginning of COVID, and my husband and I were working from home with our 2-year-old whose daycare was closed, and it was immediately stressful. Barely sleeping, barely working, and trying to keep her entertained with no playground or play dates. And Reproaction had a mindfulness yoga retreat where staff were invited to participate in a yoga session that was guided by our amazing Natalie Newman and share grounding reflections. And I just remember being in that hour and sobbing through it because it was one of the first times in months that I had checked in with myself and with my body and slowed down to realize how much anxiety I was holding. So that's all to say that self-care is such a core principle of this organization, and it's so important for everyone. So I'm so happy that we're taking this time now to share some of our self-care tips and quotes and inspiration. So we're going to start off with Jessica Ensley, who is our Digital Outreach and Operations Director. She unfortunately couldn't join us today, so I'm going to share her quote, which is, "To worry oneself is a form of self-harassment." I'm just going to read her words directly on what it means to her. She wrote, "This quote was a splash of cold water for me. As someone who has an anxiety disorder, I know that worrying tends to be a destructive habit for me. The framing of worrying as self-harassment really rang true to the dangerous worrying spirals I tend to get myself into. I keep this quote on a notepad along with other helpful tips I've learned in therapy and from supportive loved ones to read for when I'm starting to go down that mental road." And next up, I'm going to hand it over to Audrey Gao, who is our campaign coordinator, to share.
Hey y'all. So just something that I've been trying to make more of a practice is at least once a week, I like going to a park nearby just to read and journal by myself. And I think it's a really nice way to just spend some time with my thoughts away from my computer and what's been going on, and just center myself a little bit. And then that way I'm able to return to things that I really enjoy doing without having to worry about the content that I've been looking at all day. So yeah, that's mine.
Next up is Cara Mailman, our Chief Research Analyst.
Hello, everyone. So my self-care tip is don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I am a huge plant and outdoors enthusiast. And for me, taking time to like very literally get my hands dirty, whether that's inside, giving a little extra TLC to my potted plants, outside playing in the woods, or even doing something like joining a local trash cleanup through a conservation group. For me, being able to go and connect with nature in that way really helps to ground me, both because like sometimes when the anxiety becomes really overwhelming, it is hard to focus on just how beautiful this world really is. And so it gives time to connect with the world and with nature in that way. But it also helps me shift the focus from myself and the anxieties that come with working and being in this movement, and instead focus on preserving and maintaining the beauty of the world around me. And that is it for me.
Thank you. Next up, we have Natalie Newman, who's our executive assistant.
Hi, thank you so much for handing it off to me. So my self-care tip is decluttering at least one area of your home, whether that be just like a countertop, an area of your home that needs some extra attention, or an entire room of your home if you're feeling very productive. I believe that decluttering your space helps declutter your mind. Constant visual disorganization can really increase mental stress and can affect sleep, the ability to focus, and our anxiety levels overall. I like to try to start small and working my way up to the top by cleaning a larger area, or working my way up to cleaning a larger area as to not put any extra pressure on yourself. If you do have support at home, try to divvy up tasks between people that you live with to not overwhelm yourself. And remember that tidying up does not have to be an all or nothing game. Doing a little organizing goes a long way. I also like to set a timer for X amount of minutes, and that's also super helpful for me. For example, I'll set a timer for 10 minutes and decide on a space that I like to declutter, and I'll try to get as much done as possible before the alarm goes off. This structure makes the task at hand a little less daunting, and you can make significant changes in your environment in just a few minutes. Always remember to reward good behavior and habits after you've completed a task to make the habit stick, and treat yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is Tanisha Henson, who is our campaign coordinator for Bad Faith Medicine, and they were unable to join us today, so I'm going to read their self-care tip for them. And it's find a way to escape. I have been enjoying taking time to read fiction books, especially in the last 2 years. Finding another world to escape to and imagine has been a great tool to help my brain decompress and remember that there are incredible worlds we can create. That is what we're here doing this work for. However, as a nerd, my ultimate tip for escaping right now is busting out The Sims 4 and building worlds where there are magical Black people living in cottages, having families and farm, or making mermaids with afros who raise chickens on the beach. Almost anything my brain imagines, I can create and dream about. Whatever your preferred vehicle for brain vacation is, I hope it is relaxing. And you can see there, Tanisha shared their current reading with us. And next up, we're going to hand it to Caitlin Blunny, who is our Outreach and Culture Manager.
Hello. So my self-care quote is sort of philosophy that I try to bring into my work, which is this idea that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that you can't give what you're unable to receive. So as we mobilize and inspire our communities to work for the vision of abortion access we want, it's so important that we're also taking time for ourselves. If we can't show compassion towards ourselves, how can we do that for other people? And how we show up for ourselves is often how we're showing up in communities. So I know if I'm feeling anxious, when I go to talk to people about this issue, when I try to educate people about this issue, I'm bringing that anxiety with me, and it's not productive and it's not helpful. So for me, it's really important that I practice self-care every day. For me, that looks like having a really firm morning and evening routine. I'm a very type A person. And that routine for me includes yoga, meditation, and all of that really helps me fill my cup. And if you're thinking about how to cultivate a self-care practice for yourself, it's really good to think about the things that inspire you, the things that make you feel your best. And so for me, I know that's creative expression, both through art, but also physical movement, as well as connecting to nature and our earth. And, as Erin mentioned at the top, yes, we are experiencing an intense crisis with abortion access in this country right now. But we really have to remember that this work is a marathon and not a sprint. And the way that we take care of our communities and fight this fight is through our own self-preservation and care.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I believe my slide is next. So I introduced myself at the top. I'm Liz. I'm the Development and Operations Manager, and my self-care quote is good for her, not for me. So I actually came across this quote from Amy Poehler, which is actually about motherhood. It was Poehler's response to some of the mommy wars, like breastfeeding versus formula, home versus hospital birth. And it really just means championing what others are doing well for themselves and doing what you need to do well for yourself. So I think that this is such an important idea for everything, and especially for activism. What are your own talents? How do you want to use your time? At this moment, what do you have capacity for? Sometimes it's donating funds, sometimes it could be attending a rally, sometimes it's just keeping up with the news, and oftentimes, it could be just turning everything off. So you don't have to, and actually should not be trying to do it all, as many people on this webinar have said. Uplift others while you do you. And now we'll turn it over to Ivania Woods, who is our movement building and research manager.
Hello. So my self-care tip is to get yourself a really nice bike. And there's different types of bikes, different styles of bikes. That I learned way too much about bikes during the pandemic. But get a real nice bike. I'm talking fancy and functional. The bike you see me on is not functional, if you notice that flat tire in the back. But yeah, find a biking trail in your area and make time on the weekends to explore them. Or if you have time during the week in the evenings, I try to go biking twice a week on Wednesdays and Saturdays. But if I miss those days, then I try to make it up as soon as possible. And something that I failed to put in here was try going during different times of the day to see if that helps. Like when the sun is setting, or maybe not when the sun is coming up for me, because I'm never trying to get up that early, but like earlier in the morning or around noon during your lunch break, or different times to see when is like the most comforting for you. Yeah, and then optional is get a cute bike riding outfit that your skin can breathe in. I would not advise biking in yoga pants, though I do it sometimes. Whenever I'm in like loose clothes and the wind's hitting me and I'm riding, I feel so much better. But if the clothes are tight, like that's more of like exercise. Like you're trying to sweat, you're trying to lose some pounds. And I don't want like this bike riding to be where you're trying to lose weight, or like if you want to use it for that, use it for that. But like this is about not being so in your head and not doing it for a specific outcome other than just to relax and have your moment. Not optional though are sunglasses. As you can see, you'll look really cool in them. Earbuds for blasting Beyonce, and a full water bottle, because the time that I realized just how dehydrated I am is when I am riding my bike. So yeah, that's my self-care tip. And if you thought about getting a bike, or you thought about getting into biking, like now's the time. It's spring. It's beautiful out. The trails, all the trees, the flowers, the plants. It's gorgeous. Perfect time to do it.
Thank you so much, Eva. And yes, absolutely mandatory Beyonce. Next up, we have Shireen Shakori, who is our Deputy Director.
Hello, yes. So I wanted to include a quote, like Jessica did. Mine is disputed origins, but the story that I've been told about this quote, which is "This too shall pass," in Farsi, "Iniz bogzarad," which the folklore behind it is that it was an ancient king was gifted an amber ring, and he wanted an engraving to be put on the inside of the ring to give him good thoughts, good fortune. And so he asked all the highest members of his court, what should I have engraved on the ring? And everyone gave crap answers. And then some like court peasant or something came up to him and said, I think you should use the quote, "This too shall pass," because in bad times, it will remind you that things get better. But the part that a lot of people don't recall or think of is that in good times, it also keeps you humble. And so I think that's just an important lesson, especially with that last part, because sometimes we think of this sentiment and this quote as just to get us through the bad, but it's a consistent reminder of how we can carry ourselves and continue forward.
Thank you, Shireen. And finally, we have Erin Matson, our Executive Director.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, so mine is taking time to just be and to acknowledge that the work is never ending and the work will always be there when we get back. And investing in our ability to sustain the work means taking meaningful breaks. That means using vacation time without apology if it's available. So if you have vacation time through your employer, you're just docking pay for yourself, not to take all of it. But furthermore, and this intersects with activism, so many people are doing activism in their volunteer time to actually take that vacation time and also take a full break from the volunteering and the activist work as well. And taking breaks from social media and truly just putting limits on it, saying, whether that's saying I'm not going to do social media on vacation or I'm not going to on the weekends, or removing certain apps from your phone and learning to pause. And I just wanted to share a photograph. I was really fortunate to take a retreat with an organization called Wind Call that invests in the long-term sustainability of organizers. And this is a photograph I took from a solo retreat that they put me on for 1 week. And it really taught me so much about learning to be with myself and take a break. It was amazing. And it was really hard for me as somebody who is always going. There was a total technology ban too. So I was off the internet and learned to be with myself for a full week. And that really was radical and life-changing and life-sustaining for me. And so I wanted to share that photo with you all. Okay, so next steps in terms of channel your emotions into action. So we know that times are really tough. And I want to lift up, in addition to all the self-care steps, that we'd love to take action with you to increase access to abortion and advance reproductive justice. And we're currently running regional strategy sessions, no matter where Roe goes, abortion stays, where we're sharing developed tactics and materials to support local direct action work this summer, including on self-managed abortion with pills. Learn the protocol for self-managed abortion with pills, which is on our website. And we'd love to engage with you further. If you're more interested in that as well, also sign up for a strategy session and we can hook you up with more information. We've got Fight Online, so sign our petition demanding Facebook and Instagram stop hiding our posts about self-managed abortion with pills. And check out our database of anti-abortion fake clinics and download our toolkit about how to take action in your community. So info on all of this and more is on our website at reproaction.org. And please save the date for our next Act and Learn webinar. It will be on Monday, June 6th at noon Eastern. If Roe goes, abortion stays, self-managed abortion in the next era of abortion access. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Q&A. And the first question comes in from Natalie, not Natalie on our team, Natalie, a listener, and asks, how can staff help workplaces move in the right direction if prioritizing employee self-care is not a priority and burnout is apparent? And I clearly have a lot of views on this subject, but I'd really love to open that up to my team. I imagine folks on the team may want to help offer their thoughts on how to help workplaces move in the right direction if prioritizing self-care is not a priority and people are burned out.
I would be happy to share. This is Caitlin Blenny, Outreach and Culture Manager. I think a good first step, depending on where you are in your organization, is to really question urgency culture. So Are there times where work is being scheduled or deadlines that are too short that don't need to be? Are there spaces where we can take a breath? And if you're a manager and you're supervising people, that relationship can start with the person that you're working with directly. But I think, especially in movement work, we have a tendency, especially in these moments, to just think that everything needs to happen all at once right now. And it might feel like that, but really questioning, I guess, deadlines and how much work needs to get done and when.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for that, Caitlin. Is there anyone else on the team who has additional thoughts they'd like to contribute? I know y'all have thoughts. Feel free to jump in.
This is Eva. I would just say, like, to keep in mind that if you're not actively working as an individual is fine, but also you can try to change that culture in your organization by having direct conversations with your supervisors. But if you're not actively working against it, then you have to know that white supremacy is the default, right? And you could approach it in that way. Like, I would bring that language into it and make it very clear that this movement is ongoing, it's continuous, it's never ending. And if they want people to be in it for the long haul, if they want turnover in their organization to decrease, they want to keep people on, then all of these and be more productive and produce better work. Yeah, all of these things should be motivating factors or ways that you can have conversations with your supervisor. But you could also implement it as an individual within yourself, but it's not just about that. And if you are doing activism and building community as a part of that work, then you could be thinking about how to bring that into the workspace and how you can go about it and the language you can bring into those conversations. Yeah, so that would be me. Like, I know everybody isn't like comfortable doing that, or it may appear to be more aggressive or you're out of your depth, but fully, like, if you are not working at a place that respects that, where you don't feel comfortable, you can have that conversation and you may consider working somewhere else. But yeah, that's it for me.
This is Cara. I'm the chief research analyst. And one thing that I think is really important, especially for supervisors in this movement, is you have to be the one to model this behavior. If you want your employees to take more time for themselves, to really take care of themselves, you can't be consistently overworking yourself. You have to model self-care because you're setting the tone for your supervisees. You need to be making it clear that rest is not just encouraged, but expected.
That was totally awesome. Thank you so much, Caitlin and Ivania and Cara. That was awesome. And also Elizabeth typed in, I would also add you can unionize your workplace. Thank you so much for adding that, Elizabeth. So I am not seeing any other questions. Is there anything else that anyone on the Reproaction team would like to share before we close? Okay, hearing nothing, I want to thank the entire team and especially Elizabeth Skoski for pulling together today's webinar. Take care of yourselves out there. We'll see you in the streets and make it sustainable, and also take some time to put your feet up. Thanks so much.